I was only planning to harvest a few leaves this morning, just enough greens for lunch. But somehow, I ended up standing in my little balcony garden for almost an hour, cutting water spinach, purple amaranth, mustard greens, and these two unbelievably long beans that honestly surprised me. And while I was harvesting, I caught myself thinking about something I never understood before I started growing food. People think gardening is about producing vegetables. But after doing this for a while, I realized it's actually about learning how to slow down without feeling guilty. That's the part nobody talks about enough. Because in real life, especially now, most people are exhausted in a very quiet way. Not dramatic, just mentally crowded all the time. Always scrolling, always rushing, always feeling like there's something unfinished waiting somewhere. And somehow, this tiny balcony garden became the one place where my brain finally goes quiet. Not because life suddenly became easy, but because plants force you to pay attention differently. This morning, for example, the water spinach looked perfect. The stems were thick and crisp, and the tips were growing fast after the last harvest. A lot of beginners make the mistake of waiting too long before harvesting. They want the plant to look full enough. But plants like water spinach actually grow better when you harvest regularly. The more you cut healthy tips, the more side shoots the plant pushes out. That's why experienced growers don't get emotionally attached to one perfect harvest. We think in cycles instead. That's something gardening slowly teaches you. Growth is rarely one big moment. It's usually small recovery after small recovery. The purple amaranth today looked especially healthy too. Deep color, strong stems, leaves thick enough that I could tell the roots were still feeding well. And honestly, that color tells you a lot. When leafy greens lose vibrancy, most of the time it's not random. Either the roots are stressed, the soil is exhausted, or the heat has been too aggressive for too long. You start noticing these things naturally after a while, not because you read it in a gardening book, but because you've watched enough plants struggle in front of you. That's the kind of knowledge I trust the most now, the kind you earn slowly. And these long beans here? A few weeks ago, I almost gave up on that plant completely. The heat was brutal. Leaves were curling, growth had stalled. I remember staring at it one afternoon thinking, yeah, this one's probably done. But then we got a few cooler evenings and some light rain, and suddenly the vine exploded with new growth. That happens more often than people think. New gardeners sometimes panic the second a plant looks ugly, but older gardeners learn something important. A struggling plant is not always a dying plant. Sometimes it's just stressed. Sometimes it's rebuilding roots underground where you can't see it yet. Honestly, people are kind of like that too. I think that's one reason gardening feels so emotional for many adults, especially people who are tired, overwhelmed, or burned out. Because when you care for plants long enough, you stop expecting instant results from everything. You realize healthy growth can look very slow from the outside. And maybe that's why harvesting your own food feels strangely satisfying. It's not really about saving money. Store vegetables are honestly more convenient most of the time. It's the feeling of seeing proof that patience still creates something real. Every bunch of greens here has a story behind it. Some survived pests, some got damaged by heat, some almost died after heavy rain, some needed aggressive pruning before they recovered. So when I bring this basket inside, it doesn't feel like I'm carrying vegetables. It feels like I'm carrying small evidence that care matters. And I know not everyone watching this has a backyard. Honestly, neither do I. This entire garden exists in containers, reused pots, and tiny spaces wherever sunlight reaches for a few hours a day. That's why I always tell people you do not need a perfect setup to start growing food. Most people delay gardening because they think they need more space, more money, or more knowledge. But the truth is, you learn gardening by gardening. You learn by killing a few plants, overwatering, underwatering, planting at the wrong time, trying again anyway. That's how almost every experienced gardener started. So if you've been thinking about growing something, even just one container of greens on a balcony or near a window, this is your sign to start small. Not for productivity, not for aesthetics, not even for the harvest. Start because caring for something living changes the rhythm of your day in a really quiet, beautiful way. And honestly, I think a lot of us need that right now. If this video made you miss the feeling of slowing down a little, subscribe and stay a while. This tiny balcony garden still has a lot more stories to share.